It's tournament season at First, and the next big one at Santa Anita Gulfstream and ExpressBet is the Ultimate Betting Challenge this Saturday, March the 2nd. The Ultimate Betting Challenge features every race at Gulfstream Park on Fountain of Youth Day and Santa Anita Park on Big Cap Day, making it a coast-to-coast betting extravaganza. Buy in for $6,000, $5,000 live bankroll, and compete against players from around the country for massive cash prizes and NHC seats. First, we'll seed 4 NHC seats to the prize pool, and all cash entry fees will be distributed back as prizes. At 150 players, that's $150,000 in cash prizes, plus those 4 NHC seats. Play in the UBC on site at Gulfstream or Santa Anita, or jump in online with ExpressBet. Head over to expressbet.com/tournaments for more information and to register to play. Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the Grade 2 Rebel Stakes in this week's edition of Kentucky Derby Prep Recap. We're going a mile and a 16th at Oaklawn Park. The number 7, Timberlake, is the one you want to keep an eye on. Timberlake was odds on. He had good credentials as a 2-year-old, winner of the Grade 1 Champagne, 4th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he broke well in this race, Mike, and the key is he's not pulling, he's not anxious, he is relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. Probably exactly what you wanted to see from this horse in the 3-year-old debut, Dan. He could be a real handful as a 2-year-old, and he didn't always settle in his races. He's very comfortable here, and he's between horses, he's behind horses, but he's keeping up close, and he's just very settled up the backstretch here, which is a very good sign for this horse.
The pace is honest, not fast, not slow. 23.20, 47.67. Carbone, who won his first 2 starts, then disappointed over a wet track in the Southwest, is on the lead. You've got Northern Flame sitting in second, but Timberlake is cruising in behind. It always looks comfortable.
Yeah, he gets a great trip in this race. By the time they get to this final turn here, his rider will take him out into the clear 4 wide, hook him up to contention here. It's worth noting at this point, all the horses that are in your screen right now, I'm going to fill out this superfecta, Dan. There's no closers in this race.
Keep an eye on Common Defense, the number 3. Brian Hernandez Jr. likes to save ground, and that was the plan with this long shot. Timberlake's going to make his move now. 4 wide on the turn. Hernandez is going to maintain position. Hope that Carbone might drift out a path, as this horse has been wont to do in the past, and it happens. It looks like Common Defense right here is going to slip through. Timberlake's got the momentum on the outside, and for a second, Mike, before Timberlake changes leads right there, Common Defense had the momentum.
He did. He got a great trip. This was a great ride from Brian Hernandez in this race. He had him in a perfect spot all the way around. It worked out exactly how he wanted it to, and he's only second best here. He cannot go with Timberlake at the end of this race. Good performance, but Common Defense took advantage to get second here.
93 Beyer speed figure for the 3rd consecutive race for Timberlake, but the positives are there. This is a horse that sometimes didn't break the best, a horse that would pull in his races. He seemed a lot more professional this time around, and once he got focused in mid-stretch, he settled the business pretty quickly.
Yeah, man, again, it just feels like he did everything that you wanted to see from him in the 3-year-old debut. He paired up the 93s there in his last 2 starts. He matched that figure in the 3-year-old debut. And he just looked good all the way around the track, Dan. This is a very promising start to his 3-year-old campaign.
Common Defense ran second. He had shown hints of potential at 2. You like this horse at 27-1. He did have a very good trip. Do you see him improving, though, down the road, or is this his ceiling?
Oh, it's definitely not his ceiling. He can obviously do better than this. But this was the right time for him to maybe try to pull off an upset here, Dan. Not only was it probably the right field, but that's the trip that you want. If you're a big price, you just want to take your chances on the inside, save ground, and see what happens. And it all worked out for him. He ran another good one. It was another step in the right direction. This horse has some talent.
For the 3rd consecutive race, the 7th place finisher Just Steel raced very wide, but he just didn't seem to do as much running as he had in his previous starts. Is it time to turn him back in distance, or do you give him one more chance on the Derby trail?
I mean, it seems like he's going to be better going shorter. The problem with him in this race is, listen, when you're drawn out wide like that, the rider has to make a decision going into the first inning. You got to go and try to get forward, or you got to take back and save some ground. His rider didn't do either, Dan. He just sort of let him run out of there. He sat on the outside the entire way. Source was just taken. He was so wide around the track in here that I think you want to be a little forgiving, but he did get tired at the end once again.
Carbone got his chance on the lead, breaking from the inside post. And I think in this race, we learned some things. that maybe a mile and a 16th against top competition at this point's a little too much. Distance a little bit too long, class a little bit too high. I still think there's something here, though, maybe down the road going 7/8 or so.
He looked good enough in his first two starts that I don't think he just want to totally give up on him, in some better races. But it does seem like distance is a real issue, at least in the stakes ranks at this point, Dan, because he did not have a tough trip in this race. This pace was not that fast, and he wasn't taking a ton of pressure on the lead. When they came for him around the final turn, he was no match.
Dematic was adding blinkers off of a victory for Asmussen. He still seems a little bit green, Mike. Gave
Yeah.
an even performance, but he was in and among horses. I still think this horse has long-term potential, but maybe not until in the fall or so.
I do too. Listen, there weren't that many trips in this race. Maybe just Steele, and maybe this horse just because he was so ranked early, and it was just very hard to settle. Ultimately, everything kind of worked out for him, and he did his best to get fifth in this race. But still feels like he's learning how to go about things out there.
Any other horses that you saw with glimpses of potential from a trip standpoint? I mean, Next Level was a giant price. He missed the break. I don't know how much he would have impacted the income, the
Yeah.
outcome with the perfect trip. I didn't see much else.
I didn't either. I thought everybody, it felt like for the most part, these horses had good trips. Again, just Steele probably took the worst of it in here, but it's questionable how much more he has to give. I didn't really see any excuses in this race.
Let's take a closer look at the winner. Timberlake, a $350,000 yearling. Brad Cox trains. Christian Torres was aboard. Florent Giroux, of course, was in Saudi for Saudi Cup Day. Owned by Windstar Farm. This horse has got a beautiful pedigree. He's by perennial champion sire Into Mischief. His dam was stakes placed going 14 furlongs on the turf in England. She's a half sister to a multiple Group 2 stakes winner going a mile and a half. The second dam was third in both the Irish Oaks and Epsom Oaks. So there's turf in this pedigree, but a ton of distance. You don't worry about a mile and a quarter, you would think, with this guy.
Yeah, there's tons of stamina, which is what you want to see. And especially if he's going to be able to harness it like he did in this race, then he wouldn't do that as a 2-year-old. He did it here. It's a great sign for this horse.
Brad's been mentioning races like the Arkansas Derby or the Bluegrass as his final prep before a run for the Roses. Let's take a look at the prices for the Rebel. It was Timberlake. 360 is the odds-on favorite. Kenny McPeak runs 2-3 with the 3-2. Common Defense 1360, nice pick, Mike. Northern Flame was third, 680 to show. But Timberlake did what he needed to do, and he's got one more before the Derby.